Hello and welcome to the Wednesday check-in presented by the Gokhstein News Network. I'm your host, Landy, and today is September 17th, 2025, and we're looking at Bitcoin on some lower term timeframes right now. And the main reason why is because Bitcoin has, already hit resistance and kind of hit the last side of support post FOMC meeting. Well, I should say kind of running into the FOMC meeting and then a little bit after the rate decision was announced. And that, of course, was a 25 basis point cut. So the market did price that in. We did see that. And I think, there is a little bit of relief across the board in terms of sentiment in the markets, because even though the markets were very, very confident in a 25 basis point cut, it still remained to be seen how the board members voted. So they did prioritize employment over inflation, and some of the prospectus going forward is factoring in a little bit more inflation, but not quite as much as was expected, by market participants earlier in the year. So I think the market has kind of calmed down after some lower term time frame volatility. We actually didn't see as much volatility here on Bitcoin's chart as we did in traditional markets in the lower term timeframes, but we did get a nice tap of this 114,750 level. Now, of course, that is the swing low outside of the primary overhead resistance zone of interest here between 115.7 and 117.8. You can call it 116 to 118. If Bitcoin does drop this area, the next big area I want you to pay attention to, and there's a reason why I have the 4 hour on here, is the weekly. And the weekly is going to be right around that, 113.5. So let's go ahead and actually just mark that so I can kind of illustrate it on the lower term time frames here, kind of right where that close open is. We'll make this white, and then we'll go back to the 4 hour. And I want you to see why this is going to be important to pay attention to. Now, of course, this was the criteria right here at this 113.5 or so is the area that you want to see Bitcoin closing above. If it does, kind of get below there, then we're looking back to 112. And of course, we want to see this last weekly higher low, which is down here between the 107 and 108 region, hold up, because that is where the closing higher low is set. So right now, we have Bitcoin trading above the 114,750 inside of our area of interest between 115.7 and 117.8. That is generally positive, provided we do see Bitcoin remain above 114,750. If that is dropped, the next area, of course, in the really, really low term timeframes, you could take the swing below there at around 114.4. But realistically, I'd be looking for the zone of interest to play down to that 113.5. And you can see that where that, after the big sell-off, after the all-time high came in, Bitcoin came down and pinned the 112 level, bounced up to around that 113.5, and then dipped into 112 before coming back up and retesting this same area that Bitcoin is currently trading in as an area of resistance. Tried to hold 114 and then came right down into the weekly and hit some dailies inside of this weekly level between 112 and 109, as denoted by the white horizontals here. The purple area in here is a daily area of interest on the high side structure for the prior consolidation, around that 110.8 to 109.6 to 7. Now, that area after Bitcoin bounced up, it actually tested this high right here, this lower high, and then rejected, and then came all the way down to that big daily area. Now, this was the 107 to 108 daily area of interest. This was the higher low consolidation prior to coming up and making new all-time highs up here. So after tapping that, came back up and then spiked it again, or right around it, a little bit of a front run there. Came down to the dailies before working its way back up and then finding or flipping that area from resistance into support and then working its way back up into our zone of interest. Now, I still need to see Bitcoin trading above around that 117.8 to 118. And even in lower term timeframes, you can step that up to around 118,650 or so. Then I'd be looking for Bitcoin to test in and around 120 to 121 up here. This is the high side consolidation on the daily over here. And really on closes above 121, that's when I think the shorts are they're going to be forced out of position to readjust, giving the bulls, some room. Now, I do say on closes, and, whatever happens from there, even if it comes up to the all-time high, that would be the next area, 123 to 125 or so would be the next area of interest above there. But we'd want to see consistent closes above around 121. So, excuse me, just need the crap out of my desk. But yeah, that's kind of, I wanted to illustrate that point. The other thing is I wanted to note with what the Fed came out with the minutes is, they're really, really, really trying to paint the picture that they don't want to cut anymore. And I know the market is now starting to project or expect two more cuts, in possibly two cuts in Q4. And there's debate over the size of the cuts and all this and that. But if you read the FOMC notes and you listen to what Powell said, while he's still the chairman, at least until sometime early next year, they're really trying to skirt the line. They're in between a rock and a hard place. And I've mentioned this before, between their two mandates of employment and inflation, right? And we're already over that 2% inflation metric, and they're projecting 2.6 from 2.4. So, that, while it is a small uptick in the projection, I would just say let's look to the data that comes out month over month to really get a good gauge, and then see how the market is bidding, especially on Mondays. That 13 and 26 week has been really, really solid in terms of seeing what the market is trying to do. A lot of mandatory bidding going on there. So, and then across it all anyway. But that's where looking to the Treasury auctions, in this case the T-bills, really kind of honing in and seeing what they're pricing in. And this was priced in. So, I know some people were surprised by the move down. I wasn't very surprised. I don't think anybody really should be when it's priced in like that. Then it's kind of business as usual until we get the next kind of indication through economic data, because the Fed is not tipping their hand. I know that people have very strong feelings about what they're going to do, and they might be correct, but they are not tipping their hand right now on exactly what it is that we would get this year in terms of further cuts. As it is, they wanted to emphasize employment and then reassess later, basically, and even floating the idea of possibly raising rates again or something like that, which I don't see them going back to, but that's all conjecture. We got to look for the data that's coming out month over month, and we'll get some more later this month as well. So let's go to the daily real quick, let's go to the daily here. Still same area. We're right around this lower high rejection area. Need to see close above 118. That would look good for the bulls to, and even like I said, 118,650 in the lower term timeframes. I think it'd be good to look for price to start to head up to around the 120 to 121. Need to see closes above there. Push the shorts out of position to go run the highs around 123 to 125. Anywhere above there, and I'm starting to look towards the 1414 at 128 to 130. Could it swing above further? Sure, but it's all about the closes in this case. I'd want to see closes on the daily start to result in closes above the weekly to really start looking much, much further up. And when I say much further up, I showed you 138 to 140, 148 to 150. Those would be the next big areas of interest. We can always revisit those on Friday if there's interest, and if you haven't seen some of the videos where I pointed that out. Now, another big thing to look out for here for other cryptocurrencies would be Ethereum. Ethereum now trading back towards that 4630 area, sitting just above 4600. and this is a nice higher low confirmed. So that does mean that if you're a bull, you need to watch on any downside moves 44.16, and really it's below 4,500, essentially where it started to break out from this consolidation, right? If we just go here to the daily, right around 4,500, or you can take the swings even if you'd like. I like the close here. You can be a little bit more aggressive and say like, I can come down here, because we did see it close above those swings, right around just slightly below, like $1.05 below 4,500. Essentially, if we start to see price trading back below there, eyes on that last higher low at 44.16. If it does drop, we're looking, maybe swings come down to 43.84 down here by that weekly, but realistically it would start to look like anywhere below there it's going to run the consolidation lows, somewhere around 4,300 to 4,200 down here at the swing low. Below there I'm looking for 4K, but above 46.30, look right back to this high. That would be a nice little trend. This is a trend reversal setup with a higher high and a higher low, and we need to see continuation back above 47.70 in this case to go and hit the prior all-time high at 48.70 to the new all-time high up there at 49.55, and then I'm looking for 5K. Above there, as I've mentioned, I'm looking for around 52, and above 52, looking for 55, above 55, looking for 6K, and then $65 to $6,600. And then need to see closes above there for some fresh projections on targets to the upside. And that's where I'm going to leave it. I know that there is some other things. BNB's looking good and has been really solid as a play, and more people want me to kind of take a look at it because it's been cooking, and is there opportunity for it to potentially turn down? I would say, while the rest of the market's kind of in this position for BNB, which I'm not going to touch on today, it looks very strong on the daily. This is a nice structure on the daily. When looking at expansion, it's in expansion territory. It hasn't quite exhausted itself yet. It could even pull back and still like 940 and still get some, still have legs to go up, and especially back above that last higher low at around 910 or so. It looks fine for continuation, quite honestly, until we see some sort of a high put in and then a structure break, a trend break. And in this case, we don't have that, but I'll dive a little bit deeper into that one. I've gotten some requests, and if I get some more, I'll start adding it to the regular rotation here with Ethereum and Solana. Just wanted to keep it to Bitcoin today, and a little bit of a look at Ethereum. And we'll come back to this in more detail on Friday. So I will talk to you again on Friday, and I hope you all have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening, no matter where you are in the world. Please trade safe, and of course, as always, stay safe. All that being said, Landy out. Take care.